Howdy folks, Dr. Will Wong here. Let's talk about why seniors fall down. You know, everyone thinks it's just one reason they fell and something happened. There are actually a few reasons why seniors tend to fall. The first and most prominent one is polypharmacy, taking too many medications. The best example I can give you is when a doctor has you on both heart medications and blood pressure medications. Those two tend to overlap and create a low blood pressure condition where the patient gets dizzy, can't maintain balance, and of course falls. So if you're having trouble getting up out of your recliner, if you're having trouble getting up out of bed without feeling dizzy, and you're on both heart and blood pressure meds, go see your doc about getting them changed. The worst offender of the lot seems to be a heart drug called Tropol, which is meant to control heart rate. As one of my mentor MDs who had heart failure was telling me, the Tropol would just make him go into syncope, would make him faint in about 10-20 minutes after taking it, every single time. And he wasn't the only one suffering with that complaint. He was not on any blood pressure meds, just the Tropol. Now the next reason is a decline in dopamine just short of being able to be diagnosably Parkinson's. Humans decrease in dopamine 1 to 10% per year after the age of 40. If you happen to be in the unlucky group where it's declining fast, that means that by 50, you don't have a whole heck of a lot of dopamine left. And you might have something like a shuffling gait or loss of balance. Now, the shuffling gait means that you can't or won't lift your feet up high enough when you take a step, and irregularities on the floor or on the ground that you're walking on may tend to trip you and cause you to fall. Also, the lack of dopamine causes problems with balance. So you think you're kind of tipping over in one direction, you overcorrect, in the other end, bang, you're on the floor. Next comes adrenal exhaustion. Now, this is something that FDA and the AMA from 1993 on said did not exist. But since the main problem with adrenal exhaustion is postural hypotension, before, when adrenal exhaustion technically existed, there was a reason for postural hypertension. You weren't making enough aldosterone to hold the salt, to hold the water, to keep your blood pressure up. So now, there isn't a reason for postural hypotension. It is a mystery. Now, the whole reason why FDA and AMA got rid of the diagnosis of adrenal exhaustion was to allow adrenal patients to become full-fledged Addison's patients. When you have full-blown Addison's, you have no adrenal function, you're an adrenal failure, and it is a very serious condition demanding a lot of meds, a lot of hospital time, and it increases the income of the drug industry greatly. It increases the number of office visits for doctors greatly for such patients. So get rid of the diagnosis of adrenal exhaustion. Don't treat it with this very simple adrenal cortex extract, as they used to use for ACE. Adrenal cortex extract is not patentable because it's natural, so they got rid of two enemies of high income for the medical industry, the adrenal exhaustion diagnosis and the adrenal cortex extract as its treatment. So now postural hypertension is a mystery. No one knows where it comes from. But postural hypertension leaves you in exactly the same place that the polypharmacy did. It leaves you with low blood pressure. When you have low blood pressure, you're not getting an awful lot of blood up to your brain. Think of it. I mean, your brain's the highest point in your body. If you have low blood pressure, you can't pump blood up that high unless you're laying down. But when you're trying to get up and you're trying to walk with adrenal insufficiency, with adrenal exhaustion, the second you stand up, your blood pressure will drop 10 to 20 points, leaving you with very little blood going up into the brain and dizzy, likely to fall. Now, the next thing we have to look at is a condition called sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is a condition that happens to folks over 50 where they lose muscle mass. Now, typically, the statistics tell us that adults lose 10% muscle mass a year between 50 and 60. That means that by 60, you are at bare bones minimum muscle mass to move yourself around. With that great loss of muscle mass also comes osteoporosis afterwards, because the bones are completely dependent on the circulation being fed to it by the muscles that are above it to maintain their mineralization. That's called Wolff's Law. MDs have all the wrong definition of Wolff's Law. There's a wrong definition of Wolff's Law in Tabor's Medical Dictionary. But this isn't the place to get into all that. Just know that from 50 to 60 on, if you haven't been weightlifting, you've lost most of your muscles so that you're at bare bones minimum muscle mass to move yourself around. So what's that going to do when you're walking over, let's say, obstacles, irregular ground, or an uneven floor? It's going to make you very likely to lose control, trip, and fall. And now the classic excuse for a fall. Oh, the little old lady fell and she broke her hip. Didn't happen that way. Due to osteoporosis, her femoral neck, the little bone that goes from the big thigh bone and creates the ball of the ball and socket joint that is the hip, that broke off and caused the little old lady to fall. So the fracture came before the fall. The fracture was due to osteoporosis. The osteoporosis was due again to sarcopenia. You see how all this adds up? Okay, I've talked about the problems. Let's go over what can be done about them. The polypharmacy. You either need to find a doc who knows what the hell he's doing, and it takes more than just a minute or two for you to tell him what's wrong, and then he writes you a prescription. Someone who will actually sit and listen to your complaints and symptoms. A doc who realizes that there is a lot of crossover between the heart medications and the blood pressure medications, or any other meds that you may be on, and then figure out which medications to use instead of what was making you sick, what was making you dizzy, what was making you fall. Failing finding a doc like that, because those docs are as rare as rocking horse doo-doo, if you've got the IQ to do it, you should be managing your own case. You should be trying to figure out which medications are actually causing the dizziness, or which combination of medications are actually causing the dizziness, and then searching out medications that don't cause that dizziness. Then going to talk to your doc about the possibility of changing to the medications that you've discovered may help. He's going to get a little miffed about that, but insist that he try anyway. Next, on the decline in dopamine that happens again 1 to 10% in folks over 50, you have to slow down the process of the substantia nigra, the cells in the bottom floor of your brain that make dopamine. You have to keep them from dying off as quickly, because that's exactly what's happening. They're dying off. And once they die, they don't come back. There are no ribosomes in brain cells. So, like the heart, like the kidneys, like the adrenals, like the thyroid, when the cells die off, that's it. They're dead. You've lost function. You can try to make up for the dopamine by taking Mucuna pruriens, but you have to do it like every 4 hours, which is the same as if you were dosing regular carbidopa and L-dopa, because the half-life of dopamine is so short that the total effects of it lasting and working in the body are fairly short. Or you can do the combination of Mucuna pruriens, I could never pronounce that word, and a medication called saligoline, also known as Depranyl, which is available from overseas in the pharmacies in India. Go look up Deprnyl, Depranyl, invented by a researcher named Knox in the Low Countries somewhere back in the 1950s. It helps the substantia nigra to make more of its own dopamine, and it wards off getting full-blown Parkinson's, sometimes for years. It's one of the things that I've used with my case of Parkinson's, which I started taking the saligaline, the Deprenyl, in 1999, and I'm still at stage 1 of having the Parkinson's. I have not progressed a whit. Matter of fact, with some of the other things that I've been doing, I've actually gotten better in the last 10 years. So if you want to find out what those things were, drop me an email. Ask Dr. Wong at proton.me, ASKDRWONG at proton.me, and I'll send you my program that I use for treating the Parkinson's. But again, back to the point. The saligaline not only improves dopamine production, but the research has found that it prolongs lifespan. Now, how can it do that? Very, very, very easily. When you stop making dopamine, when you've made your last drop of dopamine, dopamine is what connects the brain to the body. When you've made your last drop of dopamine, there is no connection between brain and body. You are stone cold dead. Which is why the Deprenyl, even for folks who don't have Parkinson's, is one of the premier anti-aging and brain-boosting medications. The saligaline really helps to maintain and improve cognition and brain function. Next, for the adrenal exhaustion and insufficiency. You know, the FDA, as I said, banned adrenal cortex extract in 1993, saying it was useless and unneeded because there was no such thing as adrenal exhaustion. So folks have had to compensate around it. Adrenal exhaustion patients usually have to get up several times at night with full bladders to go tinkle. Now, as opposed to prostate patients who have to get up several times a night, they get up, yes, they feel like they have to urinate, yes, but their bladders aren't full. There's only a little bit of urine or scanty urine. The feeling of fullness comes from the pressure of the swollen prostate on the bladder, which makes a little bit of fluid feel like a lot. But if you get up in the middle of the night and you just pee for a minute or two, I mean, one of those long beer drinking pees, then you're an adrenal patient. So we developed our adrenal Vita Amino Complex to take the place of the old ACE, don't tell FDA, and the customers who use the product are telling us that they're not getting up as much in the middle of the night to pee. Some of them don't get up in the middle of the night at all to have to pee. One of the things about adrenal insufficiency, adrenal exhaustion, is that you are always constantly dehydrated, because as soon as you put in water, it comes out. You drink a glass of water, 20 minutes later, you're peeing out a glass of water. The inability to hold water lowers blood pressure, sometimes to a dangerous level. So our adrenal Vita Amino Complex, which, by the way, has been out of stock for the last 2 years because the primary raw material that is needed to make the product has been mysteriously unavailable worldwide. We just finally found a stock of it. We have been testing it and have sent it to the lab to see if it's exactly the same as the stuff we used to use. And when it tests out, we will build our adrenal Vita Amino Complex once again and make it available for sale once again. But using the adrenal Vita Amino Complex helps to greatly reduce the symptoms of adrenal exhaustion, adrenal insufficiency, gives you more energy, maintains your hydration, makes it so that you don't get up as many times in the night to go tinkle, and it works. Next, the sarcopenia. You know, I've been harping on this forever, especially with little old ladies who say, I have osteoporosis and I'm taking estrogen because my doctor said blah, 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 blah. You know, estrogen is catabolic to muscle. Exercise physiology has known that for the better part of 60, almost 70 years. Estrogen destroys muscle. If you're treating osteoporosis with estrogen, you might have a 1 or 2% increase in bone density per year. If you treat it with the anti-osteoporosis drugs, again, you might have a 1 or 2% increase in bone density a year. Most often you won't, because those drugs are notorious for not working or for causing side effects like having your jaw die and all of your teeth fall out in your bottom jaw. You're much better off doing strength training, a good strength training program University of Indiana found back in the late 90s that increases the bone density in seniors by 11 to 15%. That's a hell of a lot better than a maybe 2 or 3%. But more importantly than the osteoporosis here, it gives you the muscle mass and the muscle strength to move yourself around without being on pins and needles with every step. Because you don't have the strength to walk across the floor. You don't have the strength to open a jar. You don't have the strength to open a pull tab on a can. You don't have the strength to turn a screwdriver, etc., etc., etc. Doctors tell sarcopenia patients to go take a walk. Go walk to build bone density. Well, if they're walking with a backpack on, which is doubtful because they lack strength, and they're going uphill both ways, yeah, they might build some bone density in the hips, pelvis, lower extremities, maybe in the lumbar. But what about the torso and the arms? You're not putting any pressure there, so you're not building any bone density there. You're not building any muscle mass there. Are you going to walk on your hands for a mile or two to get the bone density increase in the upper body? No, you can't do that. So the docs who use Tabor's Medical Dictionary classic definition of Wolff's Law are just absolutely wrong. The exercise physiology definition of Wolff's Law states that mineralization is laid into bones along axial lines of stress. That's something that MDs can't quite figure out. What are they talking about? Well, just about every MD who works with seniors, who works with physical rehab, really needs to go get a degree in exercise physiology, especially the specialization of physiatry, which is about physical rehab. They don't study exercise physiology. They don't know what exercise does. They have no clue. They have a passing knowledge of it, but their specialization really doesn't go into the depth it needs to go into to get exercise prescription right. And don't talk to me about physical therapists who think they know about exercise. Again, unless they've got a separate degree in physical education, sports medicine, biomechanics, or exercise physiology, they're talking out of their ass. And yes, that's a pretty damn strong statement, but I say that as an exercise physiologist who for the last 40 some odd years has been so frustrated by the level of ignorance in the medical and physical therapy professions that it drives me crazy sometimes what they tell patients to do that will not work. So I go into these educational rants. But again, getting back to my point, if you go on a good strength training program, if you find someone who knows how to program exercise for seniors, either a personal trainer, an exercise physiologist, a YMCA guy who's taken courses in training seniors, they will be able to program a bout of exercise with sufficient resistance, sufficient repetition, sufficient this and that and the other to rebuild your strength, and in so doing, re-strengthen your bones. Life is a hell of a lot easier when you're stronger. Now, if you can't find anyone who can teach you how to do the exercises or coach you through or mind you, if you're the lazy type, to make sure that you're doing the exercises with sufficient intensity, if you don't have any of that, then go to drwongsmessage.com, DRWONGS message.com, and click on the A through Z articles and find the article titled Minimalist Strength Training and follow the protocols I speak about there. So with the knowledge of what can cause a fall in seniors, hopefully the seniors who are feeling unbalanced, feeling unsteady, feeling like they might trip and fall, can have a better idea as to what to do and how to manage their condition so that they get stronger or more able or have better blood pressure and don't trip and fall. Hope all this information helps. Be well and God bless, folks. Till next time, I'm Dr. Wong.